Well, my basic priority was, of course, to try to increase the membership of the branch, and we did that with what we call the PEN Plan for Membership, and I'll explain that to you another time. But it worked successfully, and we were able to increase our membership considerably. Of course, the other thing that we did was the lawsuit that was filed against the Board of Education called Bradley versus Milliken lawsuit. And after I left, of course, the lawsuit was settled, and we did win that one. I would say that Detroit is the best experience I've had in terms of growth in my life. It allowed me to become the person that I think I am now today. You learn so many things because being head of an organization like this, at least the executive secretary of an organization like this, you learn so many things that you have to do. And I remember one time my assistant said, "Mr. Penn, you better jump out of here, get out of here real fast." And I jumped in my car and I ran down the street, and then all of a sudden I had a telephone in my car. I wired back to her and I said, "Where am I going?" It was that kind of situation in Detroit. So you're always busy and you respect it, and I enjoyed it very much.
Well, I think making sure that lawsuit in the federal district court to desegregate the Detroit schools was an important part of my presidency, and we wanted to make sure that case flowed evenly through the court. It went all the way to the Court of Appeals and eventually to the Supreme Court. So that was the most important part. What advice would you give to the future leaders of the NAACP? Continue to be vigilant about the underprivileged in the poor community. NAACP continues to be the strongest organization on behalf of African Americans in this country because the issues have not died. Racism still survives, and we have to address those issues as we continue to be a viable organization.
I'm Joe Madison. In the mid-1970s, at the age of 24, I actually became the youngest executive secretary of the Detroit NAACP. And I worked with any number of people, many names that you would recognize: Rosa Parks, Mark Stepp, Lem Barney, Duke Fakir of the Four Tops, Tom Turner, Attorney Elliott Hall, Dr. Reverend Frederick Sampson, Father William Cunningham, just to name a few. And we were involved in all kinds of projects. Black exploitation films, where the young people marched against those films because of the negative impact they had on the minds of many of our young people. Voter registration campaigns. We walked literally from Louisville, Kentucky to Detroit, registering tens of thousands of people along the way. The Dearborn Park boycott, when the city of Dearborn decided that non-residents could not use their parks. We boycotted the city of Dearborn successfully and rescinded that law. Banks that closed savings accounts of people that had $50 or less at a time when Detroit was going through a terrible recession. And then, of course, the United States Supreme Court decision, Bradley versus Milliken, which dealt with cross-district school desegregation. But what I remember most of all, and the people who really should be honored today, are literally the thousands of volunteers, young and old, who supported the NAACP during my tenure and years before and years after. Those are really the ones who should be held in high esteem. They are the true leaders of the Detroit NAACP.
I was always in love with the NAACP since my youth. I was head of the NAACP. In my high school, Central High School, I attended Central High School with Reverend Wendell Anthony. The membership doubled during my tenure. It was already the largest branch at 25,000 members upon my arrival, but it grew to 50,000 during my tenure. The most important things we did for citizens never made the front pages. That is forcing corporations to do the right thing with respect to affirmative action, inclusion, diversity, and we just provided help for people, small or big, who requested the services of the Detroit branch NAACP. It was a pleasure to serve.
Fight until you win. Just that I've been very pleased and proud to serve with this Detroit branch NAACP, the largest in the world, not just the nation, the world, since 1992. And certainly I hope that I've contributed somewhat to this magnificent progress that's been made under the leadership of Reverend Dr. Wendell Anthony. I thank him for the opportunity to serve.
The Youth Council and connecting to the next generation was extremely important to me. Bringing the Youth Council inside of the day-to-day operations of the branch, I thought was extremely important. The advice I would give to the future generations of NAACP leaders is be honest, live your passion, continue to grow your skills, love Black people unconditionally, and don't ever apologize for being committed to self-determination.
While I truly believe that I am the beneficiary of a family and a community that have wrapped their arms around me and demanded greatness, but more importantly, have spiritually, mentally, and physically supported the pursuit thereof, I certainly would point to the individuals who have encouraged me to move into leadership here at the Detroit NAACP, and that of my mother, Miss Yvonne White, and my brother, Brian White, both who were members of the Detroit branch NAACP and held various different capacities of leadership prior to my coming on board. I always like to jokingly say that if we had a family business, it would be that of civil rights and social justice advocacy. Thank you to everyone who has come before myself and those generations who have yet to come, to the trailblazers of the last 100 years of the Detroit branch NAACP. We, as in the next generation, stand poised, ready and willing to fight for the next 100 years. Thank you and God bless.
When I think about how I got into the NAACP, the Detroit branch leadership, the one person that really came to me and really tried to convince me to be a part of this was, of course, Ernie Lofton. Ernie Lofton came to my office one day as we were in church over on 6 Mile and asked me about running for the Detroit branch president. Well, I think when one asks the question about the cultural change that we've had in the Detroit branch NAACP since I've been president, I think it's been a more assertive and aggressive outreach, particularly as relates to community on the streets and negotiation and demonstration. We want to thank God for the NAACP. We appreciate all the work that the volunteers, that the staff have done. This is not a one-person operation. This is a collective operation. The NAACP is a group of folk who volunteer on a day-to-day basis to do the work of freedom, justice, and equality. And I say to people all the time, if you got a problem with the NAACP, okay, that's fine. Then join the Urban League. If you got a problem with the Urban League, join the SCLC. If you got a problem with SCLC, join your neighborhood block club. You got a problem with that block club, get involved in your church. You got a problem with your church, get involved with the PTA. If you got a problem with that, then you create something that we all can be a part of. There's enough hell burning around in our community for everybody to get a bucket and decide what fire they want to put out. If you ain't got no bucket, if you ain't trying to put out no fire, then you are not trying to help us move it to the next level. Don't complain about it, get into the game and do something about it.